Now, Operation Watershed, a civic group pushing for democratic change, is calling for over 1 million South Africans living abroad to be recognized as part of the National Dialogue's steering committee. Earlier this month, the National Dialogue Convention was launched under the theme Uniting Voices, Shaping the Nation. Operation Watershed has submitted a request for a diaspora recognition as 22 other sectors prepare to nominate members to that steering committee. Joining me now live is the group's founder, Hayley Reichert. Hayley, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this morning. Perhaps maybe just talk to us about your organization and its mission and just some of the core activities that you do in realizing the needs and the voices for people that are living abroad.
Thanks for having me. So I've been involved with the global South African community for more than a decade, having initiated the loss of citizenship campaign, which led to the DA's court case. A lot of the work that I do is around home affairs issues, consular service issues and travel issues for South Africans abroad. And in the last couple of years, having navigated my way through relationships with different political party leaders and realizing the call from them is about getting South Africans to be active citizens. Through my engagements, there are so many abroad who love South Africa, miss South Africa, want to see the country succeed. Many abroad, myself included, want to come home one day. So for me, it's a case of how can I get other people abroad involved in helping drive the change we want to see in the country and to make it a viable option for us to return home one day.
So, I mean, with that said, you are living abroad, your organization is based abroad, but obviously representing those voices that are currently abroad. How do you then provide unique insights or perspectives on issues that are facing South Africans today? Are there any specific areas that you look into in terms of economic development, social cohesion, and just governance as a whole?
It's a tricky one. There's so many issues that face our country. And I think, so I undertook 2 self-funded pre-election trips in 23 and 24, going into townships, speaking to political party leaders, civil society organizations, to try and get South Africans abroad to change their perspective of the country, and to realize it literally is up to all of us rolling up our sleeves. The issues are vast, but I think some core issues for us to kind of, if we are elected onto this steering committee, I think some core issues for us to focus on, other than the consular service and home affairs issues, which is a real pain for South Africans abroad, is business investment. A lot of people abroad say if the country was safer and if it was more economically viable, i.e. jobs, they would consider returning home. So starting with the jobs, hopefully will then lead to a decrease in crime. So if we can lobby, if it is export, we have the issue with the US trade tariffs. If it is looking at helping, I'm part of a member of the LACA network, which is South Africans around the world doing business with each other. If we can help open up markets for export from South Africa, if we can help lobby around the red tape on investors abroad wanting to set up shop in South Africa, I think that there's a lot that we can do just in the business space and also in the charity space. I run an NPO in Durban area. I've got lots of friends and contacts abroad who run their own businesses, they run charities, they make contributions to charities, but it's rather than just plugging a hole or putting a plaster on something, we have to get to the root cause, and that's part of my goal.
I mean, we saw that first leg of the dialogue in terms of the National Convention. What was your take in terms of the discussions that really just opened up to the broader dialogue that needs to take place over the next couple of months? There were issues such as GBV that were touched on. What was your take when you watched just how then it was launched?
It's a tricky one. I've tried to look at the positives and listen to a lot of the negatives. Obviously, a lot of frustration in how long it took to get the ball rolling from when President Ramaphosa first mentioned the national dialogue. Not much transparency in terms of who's involved in this eminent person group. And watching, I sat and caught up last weekend, watched the 2 days. And I think people expect it to be neat and tidy and organized, and it's like it's going to be a messy process. So it's not going to be a perfect process. And I think we can argue as much as we want about the money that's been allocated and who's involved, but it's about heeding that call for us as citizens to step up to the mark. And if we're not happy with how it's being run, we need to step up and get involved to drive it in the direction that we want. Watching some of the conversations that took place at that launch event, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of frustrations, there's a lot of people wanting to vent and get their anger and their frustration off their chest, rightly so. We've had 30 years of democracy, and particularly in the last 15 years, where a lot has gone wrong. But I think one key mistake that I've seen is time allocation. I think that trying to have every voice in the room heard is going to take a lot of time. And I think it's even this 9-month process. Yes, we can't drag it on for too long. We have to get something going. We have to make moves on at least some core issues. But I think that as people come forward and as people get on board and as this steering committee is formed, I think there does need to be some kind of look again at how we actually manage this process, because it's not just a case of 6 to 9 months, another convention, and everybody goes home. It's going to be, this is for the long haul. I'm in this for the long haul because I want to come home one day. So it is really around how we can manage that frustration between time allocation and actually getting things done.
Speaking of that time allocation, I mean, there has been the extension to accept nominations by the 8th of September, I believe, for that steering committee. Just talk to us in terms of what your expectations are in wanting to be included within that steering committee. And do you often find that South Africans living abroad are excluded in many of the conversations that we have here in the country?
I think we are to a large extent. So for me, something that came out of the voting last year is we are not recognized as a constituency. So there's a lot of frustration. Access to voting is a huge issue. People abroad do still want to cast their votes. A lot of them are excluded from voting. Obviously, I want to get people more involved other than just voting once every 5 years. But we are not recognized as a constituency. So a massive driver for me is to make that happen, for government to officially and legally recognize us, i.e. the 10th province. That will open up a lot of doors for more investment in conversations and basically putting South Africans abroad at the top table, giving them a voice at the highest level to engage at the level that we need to be. As I mentioned, so many people abroad running businesses in South Africa. So having us recognized as the 10th province, in terms of voting, that would open up. We only got the national ballot. With the change in our voting system, we do not have the regional to national ballot. So the value of our vote was actually halved last year because our votes only contributed towards 200 out of the 400 seats in Parliament. And there's so many other things that can be unlocked from us being recognized by government, as I've mentioned before, with business, with charities. So this is why I'm pushing to be on this national dialogue. I was involved with the electoral reform consultation panel, made submissions there, also lobbying for us to be recognized. And I think it is just the more that I get involved in the civil society work, the more lobbying that I do, it's helping to educate those abroad of how to get involved with lobbying, how to build relationships with the politicians, businesses, government, and it's a bit of a push-pull factor. It's trying to build relationships with them, but also pushing back on and kind of holding them to account as well. So, and journalists, I mean, like today, I sent out a press release yesterday and you guys responded, and trying to get the South Africans abroad to understand the value of journalism and independent media in the country is huge. A lot of arguments around, people abroad, majority do vote opposition, they want change, and they have a massive argument around those still in South Africa who are allowing the status quo to continue. So it's like trying to get them to understand the majority are, if they're underprivileged, living on a grant, their focus is on immediate needs. I need food. I need to try and find a job, rather than access to data, which is expensive in the country, and access to information around corruption and things like that. So it's getting those abroad to say, well, how can we help provide access to independent media, access to education for South Africans abroad in South Africa who need it most, who need that education, who need that exposure to develop their understanding, to develop their critical thinking skills, so that they can start asking, why am I voting? Who am I voting for? How do I connect with local leaders to be an active voice in my community, whether you are in Sandton or Soweto,
or somewhere in the rurals. We are running out of time,
exactly.
Hayley, but I just want to quickly ask you, because speaking on that same argument, others may argue that those that aren't living in South Africa, that are living abroad, don't necessarily understand the day-to-day challenges of those that are experiencing the poverty and receiving those social grants at a ground level. So how do you marry or find that midpoint in ensuring that the voices of those people that are living abroad really do reflect the challenges that South Africans living in South Africa are actually experiencing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, and just on that, there's a big argument from South Africans in South Africa saying that those abroad, we shouldn't vote, we shouldn't have a say, we no longer live in South Africa. So I work off 3 words: educate, empower, and inspire. You can't inspire someone until you've empowered them. You can't empower them until you've educated them. So this is why I do what I do. This is why when I come home, I was in Mitchell's Plain with Ian Cameron. I was in Umlazi with the IFP and with Rise Mzansi. I was in Soweto with Build One South Africa, and another chap, Gigi Alcock, who does a lot of work in the Casinomics township economy space. And you know, I love it. I love engaging with South Africans from all walks of life in all different communities. And for me, it's going to those types of communities and creating content and sharing that on my social media did help engage a lot of South Africans in the lead up to the election abroad, in the election drive last year. So having more of that, and it's trying to marry those abroad with those in South Africa. You mentioned GBV. If whatever, my whole drive is to try and connect people. So if you are someone living abroad and your passion is gender-based violence or education or whatever it might be,
right,
how can I, through the steering committee, connect you with other people championing that specific topic in South Africa?
All right, Hayley, thank you so much for your time. We certainly do hope that those voices will be heard broadly within South Africa. That was Hayley Reichert, the founder of Operation Watershed.